Have you ever been scrolling through Instagram? I'm sure you have, and automatically assumed that you have someone figured out. You may not even notice them personally, but because of their feed or their stories, you think you know everything about them. Sometimes we may even want to be them or be their friend because of what we see on Instagram. It seems so interesting. It seems so cool. I saw this one dude's Instagram page a while back when I was scrolling, and I went to his profile, I looked at his story, and I instantly wanted to be friends with this guy. It seemed like all he was into was the same stuff that I was into. He had so many cool things on his feed. We both played sports. Our birthdays were in the same month. His feed was full of pictures of him visiting incredible places, hitting game winners in AAU tournaments, and it seemed like he had a ton of friends. Eventually, we started liking and commenting on each other's pictures back and forth, but I wouldn't say we were friends. You know those social media friends that you have where you're only friends on, social media? One day, I actually saw this person in real life, and it was a little bit different than I had expected. I'm not sure what I expected, but it wasn't what I saw. He looked similar to the pictures that I saw, but not identical. His personality seemed dim, and he didn't seem too pleasant to be around. Because I was so thirsty to be this dude's friend, I still went up and said what's up. He was kind of a jerk and shallow, and it was a short-lived conversation about a party that I knew my parents weren't going to let me go to. Long story short, we didn't have as much in common as I had assumed. I'm not saying every person you meet from Instagram will be a catfish, but until you get to know someone in person, people can create any lifestyle that they want you to see. We often assume we know the stories of other people. We assume we know them just because we know their name or their friends or we know what they like. Many of us confuse following someone on Instagram with actually knowing their story. Their Instagram story is not their personal story. I've made this mistake before. I thought I knew someone because of what he posted and the friends he had, but I really had no idea who this guy was. We're all guilty of assuming we know where our friends live, but until we step into their homes, there are pieces of them that we may never be aware of. There is so much more to a person than what we see on the outside. Everyone has a backstory that we may never know about. We also have a backstory, you and I. Each of us has a story that comes with family dynamics, friends, things that have happened to us, hurts and wounds that we carry, all the good and all of the bad things intertwined into the story that make us us. Most of us, we know our own stories pretty well. In those moments where you might break down and cry or lash out at a friend in anger, we look for people to understand our stories better in hopes that they can understand us. Maybe we say things like this: if they only knew the kind of morning I had. They don't know what I'm dealing with at home. I couldn't sleep last night because I was just so anxious and worried. I'm angry all the time, and I'm not even sure why I'm this angry. This might be true for us, but when we forget to think about that step in the moments when our friends lash out in anger or a family member is rude to us, immediately we get upset with them. But have you ever taken a moment to sit back and wonder, why might they have snapped at me the way they did? We all have those mornings. The morning where you overslept, you spill your coffee down the front of your shirt, and you still end up missing the bus. When our day starts like that, we can become victims of our emotions. Giving grace to our friends and our family in these moments is so important because the reality is we never know what they're facing. We rarely try to understand their backstory, and because of that, we miss out on being personal with them and knowing the story of who they are. Over and over in the New Testament, we see Jesus take the time to understand the people he met. He took the time to have conversations and share meals with people no one else would spend time with. You see, Jesus looked for opportunities to get personal with people. We have been talking about a man named Zacchaeus and how Jesus walks into his life. Zacchaeus was not exempt to how Jesus impacted the lives of people that he interacted with. Let's check it out. Think about what Jesus does to try to know Zacchaeus during this story. When Jesus came by, he looked up at Zacchaeus and called him by name. "Zacchaeus," he said, "quick, come down. I must be a guest at your home today." Zacchaeus quickly climbed down and took Jesus to his house in great excitement and joy. Luke 19, 5-6. Jesus invited himself over to Zacchaeus' house and took time to enter Zacchaeus' everyday context. Jesus knew it was risky, but he also knew that there was more to Zacchaeus than what everyone in town thought that they understood about him. But the people were displeased. He has gone to be the guest of a notorious sinner, they grumbled. Luke 19:7. It clearly didn't go over well with some of the people in the town. They were all talking about it. The thing about Jesus is that he didn't conform to the world's standards. He was looking to connect with Zacchaeus on a greater level. Jesus didn't care about what the townspeople were saying. He wanted to step into the place where Zacchaeus was most comfortable, his house. Your space, your home, and where you let your guard down is the place that Jesus knew he could get closer to Zacchaeus and learn more about the man Zacchaeus was. Where we live is more than a physical address. Understanding our circumstances and the situations is the window into who we really are. There is a part of our story that not everyone gets invited into. But here's the thing. Jesus is God. He already knew Zacchaeus' backstory, but Jesus spending more time with Zacchaeus in his home, you see, it makes it all more personal. He was able to connect with Zacchaeus in a way the crowd was not willing to connect with him. Jesus showed him that he wanted to get to know Zacchaeus in a bigger way, to really understand him, and he did it by getting personal and showing up where Zacchaeus lived. When it comes to understanding our own stories, the stories of other people, we can take a look at the life of Jesus as he sought out ways to get personal with people and to understand their stories. Take a look at this verse in Philippians. You must have the same attitude that Christ Jesus had. Though he was God, he did not think of equality with God as something to cling to. Instead, he gave up his divine privileges. He took the humble position of a servant and was born a human being. When he appeared in human form, he humbled himself in obedience to God and died a criminal's death on the cross. Philippians 2:5-8. Jesus stepped into our world as a human. He walked on the earth to step into our story, your story, to experience our world where we live. Jesus made God personal for us. When you read the story of Jesus, we forget the moments that allow Jesus to understand and connect with our own stories. The same exact moments from your story may not have happened to him, but we can't forget that as a human, you see, Jesus, he was once a baby, and he went to the bathroom, and he cried all night, just like you once did. He had to deal with siblings. He was forgotten about by his parents. I mean, they literally forgot Jesus one time. He experienced loss as one of his best friends died. He questions his purpose. He dealt with people ridiculing him and doubting him. He knows the hurts that you carry, the worry that you have. He knows the doubt you have in him and the thing that keeps you up at night. He knows your hopes. He knows your dreams. He knows your prayers. But he doesn't just simply know them. He wants to step into your home, the place that is personal to you. He wants you to know that he doesn't just want you to understand his story. He understands your story. And here's the truth, our bottom line today. It's personal because Jesus understands your story. Since he can understand our story, we can take steps in our lives to connect with him, to connect with ourselves, and to connect with others. Let's just get real for a second. It can be hard to let people into our lives and let people know where you live. It can be easy to hold on to our secrets because we don't want the people around us, the people in your group, to judge you. We think in our minds about the responses that other people are going to have to our stories, to all our lives, to the things that we're holding tight to. Sometimes we can even feel that our stories are too big to even handle ourselves, and so how can we expect someone else to get it? The beautiful thing is when we can begin to boldly share our stories with other people, it gives them this sense of permission to share their story too. So, where do we start? Well, here's a few ideas. For some of you, your first step is to wrestle with the idea and acknowledge that Jesus knows you, all the pieces of you, and that he wants to step into your story, and that he can understand your story, your situation, your emotions, and he loves you. Jesus knew Zacchaeus and all the rumors about his life, how he was an outcast from his community, how people hated him for his job, and how he treated others. Jesus knew that, but he also knew that there was more to Zacchaeus' story, and Jesus wanted to step into that, and he wants to step into your life. He wants to get personal with you the same way he did with Zacchaeus. For others of you, your next step is to let someone else into your story. I don't think it should be a random stranger, but someone you know, someone that you trust, and someone that you actually want to share your story with. This is a huge step. We get it. What if you knew that they already cared about you, that they were for you, and they wanted to understand your story more? Why not start by letting your small group leader hear your story? That adult that sits and listens to you every single week, who shows up to be with you and to see you. And here's the secret, they have their backstory too. Why not share a little bit with your small group leader today? This is a huge step. But what if you could give the gift of allowing someone to go second by being first to share? Talk about your backstory. Allow your group to see who you are when you're not with them. When you share your backstory, you are opening up the door to have someone else to have the same freedom to share their backstory with you. Allowing someone to see who you are behind closed doors can allow you to make connections with people you might have never connected with before. And the thing that makes you feel different could be the thing that connects you to somebody else. And then for others of you, it's really time for you to start to actually understand the story of other people. We have to create safe places in our lives to get to know others. We often act like the crowd towards Zacchaeus. We see on the outside all of the actions. We see and pass judgment on other people because we know it. Maybe it's how someone dresses, their reputation, or how they have a different culture than you, or simply because they aren't sure what you both have. You aren't sure what you both have in common. Take a step to get personal with someone and understand their story, to listen and to actually hear them for who they are. You see, our lives can change when we allow people to see us how we are, to understand our stories, and even more when we can begin to understand the stories of others. Just as Jesus took the time to go into Zacchaeus' home and understand Zacchaeus' backstory, Jesus wants to be invited into your life too. Jesus wants to understand every part of who we are because our relationship with Him is personal. And so today, as you head to your groups and head into conversation, what does it look like to have others understand your story? And what does it look like for you to understand theirs? And we have the opportunity to get personal today, to really understand one another and to see how God's story is moving in our life.